Her legs gave out. Victoria Crane, regional manager, 15 years with the company. The woman who had clawed her way up from entry-level sales to corner office. The woman who made people tremble when she walked past their desks. Now she was sitting in a chair in the middle of the boardroom, and her legs had simply stopped working. The entire executive team was staring at her. 12 faces, 12 sets of eyes, and not one of them looked sympathetic. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. No words came out, because standing at the head of the table, in the seat reserved for the company's majority owner, was a man she had fired 2 days ago. The janitor, the 63-year-old black man she had called lazy, the man she had humiliated in front of the entire office, the man she had thrown out like garbage and laughed about afterward. Walter James. He was wearing a suit now, tailored, expensive. His silver beard was neatly trimmed. His posture was different, shoulders back, chin up, eyes steady. But it was still him, the same man who had mopped her floors, the same man who had emptied her trash, the same man who owned every single share of this company. And Victoria Crane's entire career had just ended. Let me tell you how we got here. 2 weeks earlier, Pinnacle Solutions was a mid-sized consulting firm in downtown Atlanta. 40 employees, glass walls, open floor plan, the kind of office that looked impressive in photographs but felt cold when you actually worked there. And working there every single day, arriving before anyone else and leaving after everyone had gone, was Walter James. He was 63 years old, tall, broad shoulders despite his age. His hands were rough from decades awake, and his eyes carried the kind of quiet wisdom that only comes from living through things most people couldn't imagine. Every morning at 5:30, Walter unlocked the building. He vacuumed the floors, cleaned the bathrooms, emptied the trash cans, restocked the supply closets. By the time the first employees arrived at 8, everything was spotless. Most people didn't notice. Most people walked right past him like he was invisible. But Walter noticed everything. He noticed which managers said good morning, and which ones looked through him like he wasn't there. He noticed which employees left their desks trashed, and which ones cleaned up after themselves. He noticed how people treated the receptionists, the interns, the delivery drivers. He noticed everything, and he had been noticing for 3 years. There was one manager who stood out above all the rest. Victoria Crane, regional manager, 44 years old. Blonde hair always perfect, designer suits, a smile that never reached her eyes. Victoria had a corner office with a view. She had an assistant she made cry at least once a month. She had a reputation for being ruthless, and she wore that reputation like a badge of honor. But the thing about Victoria, she treated people differently depending on what they could do for her. Executives, she was charming, flattering, the perfect team player. Clients, she was warm, attentive, whatever they needed. But the cleaning staff, the maintenance workers, the people she considered beneath her, those people got a different Victoria entirely. Walter's first real interaction with Victoria happened 6 months ago. He was cleaning her office after hours. She had left for the day, or so he thought. He was emptying her trash when the door swung open. Victoria stood there, coat on, purse over her shoulder. She looked at Walter like she had found a rodent in her office. "What are you doing in here?" Walter straightened up slowly. "Evening. Just doing the cleaning. Almost finished." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "I don't recall giving you permission to be in my office. The cleaning schedule has me here every evening at." "I don't care about the schedule," Victoria snapped. "When I'm working late, you wait until I leave. You don't just walk in here." "Understood." Walter nodded, slowly, calmly. "Understood." He picked up his supplies and walked out. But as he passed her, Victoria muttered something under her breath. They really need to do better background checks on these people. Walter heard it. He didn't respond. But he remembered. Over the next 6 months, it only got worse. Victoria made comments. Little ones. The kind that could be dismissed as careless if you weren't paying attention. "Make sure nothing goes missing," she would say when Walter cleaned near her desk. "I don't want him in the break room when we're having lunch," she told her assistant once. "It's uncomfortable." One time, when a piece of jewelry went missing from another manager's office, later found in her own gym bag. Victoria suggested that the cleaning staff should be investigated first. She never said Walter's name, never made a direct accusation, but everyone knew who she meant. Walter kept his head down, did his job, never complained, but he was watching, always watching. Now, you might be wondering why a man like Walter would put up with this. Why a man with his dignity, his experience, his wisdom would spend his days cleaning floors and enduring disrespect from people half his age. The answer goes back 15 years. Walter James was not always a janitor. In his 30s and 40s, he had been an entrepreneur, a self-taught businessman who started with nothing. I mean nothing, no money, no connections, no safety net, and built a consulting firm from the ground up. By the time he was 50, that firm had grown into a small empire. 3 offices, 80 employees, millions in annual revenue. But success cost him. Long hours, constant travel, missed dinners, missed birthdays. His wife, Dorothy, stood by him through all of it. She was his rock, his conscience, the one person who always told him the truth. "You're losing yourself, Walter," she would say. "You're so busy building a company that you've forgotten what matters." He didn't listen. Not until it was too late. Dorothy got sick when Walter was 53. Cancer. She fought for 2 years. 2 years of hospitals and treatments and hoping against hope. And in those 2 years, Walter finally understood what she had been trying to tell him. He sold his company. All of it. Stepped away from the business world entirely. He was with Dorothy every single day until the end. She died holding his hand. Her last words to him were simple. "Stay humble, baby. Don't ever forget where you came from." After Dorothy passed, Walter didn't know what to do with himself. He had more money than he could ever spend. He had a beautiful home. He had everything most people dream of. But he was empty. For 2 years, he drifted, traveled, tried to find meaning. And then he heard that his old company, the one he had sold, was struggling. New ownership had made bad decisions. Morale was terrible. The culture he had built was crumbling. Walter made some calls, did some research, and quietly, very quietly, he bought the company back, every single share. But this time, he didn't want to run it from the top. He wanted to see it from the bottom. He wanted to know what it was really like to work there, not as the CEO, not as the owner, but as a person everyone overlooked. So he became the janitor. He told no one, not the executives, not the HR department, not even the cleaning company that employed him on paper, a company he also secretly owned. For 3 years, Walter mopped floors and emptied trash and watched. He watched who treated people with respect. He watched who abused their power. He watched everything. And he took notes. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Walter was cleaning the 3rd floor conference room after a big client meeting. The room was trashed. Coffee cups everywhere, food ground into the carpet, papers scattered across the table. He didn't mind. This was his job. But then Victoria walked in. She wasn't alone. She had 2 junior managers with her, Kevin and Priya, people she was clearly trying to impress. "Perfect," Victoria said, looking at the mess. "The janitor's here." She turned to Kevin and Priya. "Watch this." She walked over to the coffee station, picked up a full cup of cold coffee, and poured it directly onto the carpet. Then she looked at Walter. "Missed a spot." Kevin laughed nervously. Priya looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Walter stared at the coffee stain. Then he looked up at Victoria. "I'll take care of it." "Yeah, you will," Victoria said. "That's what you're paid for, isn't it? To clean up after your betters." "Your betters?" Walter's jaw tightened. Just barely. Just for a second. But he didn't respond. He just knelt down and started blotting the stain. Victoria smirked. Turned to the others. "See? That's how you handle people like him. You have to be firm. They respect strength." She walked out. Kevin followed. Priya hesitated at the door, looking back at Walter with something like shame in her eyes. But she didn't say anything. She just left. The next day, Walter arrived at work to find Victoria waiting for him in the lobby. She wasn't alone. 2 security guards stood behind her. And standing off to the side, looking deeply uncomfortable, was the HR director, Tom Martinez. Walter stopped walking. Is something wrong? Victoria smiled. That cold, satisfied smile. Walter James. You're being terminated effective immediately. Walter blinked. Terminated? On what grounds? Theft. Victoria held up a folder. We found evidence that you've been stealing office supplies. Pens, paper, cleaning products. Walter stared at her. That's not true. We have documentation, Victoria said. She was enjoying this. You could see it in her eyes. Security footage, inventory reports. It's all here. Tom Martinez spoke up, his voice uneasy. Victoria, we should probably conduct a full investigation before. The investigation is complete, Victoria snapped. I conducted it myself. The evidence is clear. She turned back to Walter. You have 5 minutes to collect your things. Security will escort you out, and I'd advise you not to make a scene. We both know how this will look. Walter didn't move. He looked at Victoria, then at the security guards, then at Tom, who wouldn't meet his eyes. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Walter nodded. Slowly. All right, he said quietly. I'll go. Victoria's smile widened. Smart man. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Walter turned and walked toward the maintenance closet to collect his things. Behind him, Victoria laughed and said to security guards, Finally, that guy gave me the creeps from day one. Walter walked out of Pinnacle Solutions that day with a small bag of personal belongings, his favorite mug, a photo of Dorothy, a worn Bible she had given him 30 years ago. He didn't argue, didn't make a scene, didn't say a single word in his own defense. He just left, and Victoria Crane thought she had won. But here's what Victoria didn't know. While Walter was walking out the front door, 3 things were happening simultaneously. First, the head of HR, Tom Martinez, was in his office, furiously reviewing the evidence Victoria had provided, and he was realizing that something wasn't right. The security footage was from angles that didn't exist. The inventory reports had dates that didn't make sense. The whole thing looked manufactured. Second, Priya, the junior manager who had watched Victoria pour coffee on the carpet, was sitting at her desk, staring at her computer. Her conscience had been eating at her for 24 hours. And finally, she made a decision. She opened her email and started typing a message to the company's anonymous ethics hotline. And third, most importantly, a meeting was being scheduled, a board meeting, called by the majority shareholder. For the following morning at 9 a.m., attendance mandatory, no exceptions. Victoria didn't sleep well that night. Something about the board meeting made her uneasy. She hadn't been told what it was about, just that she needed to be there. But she pushed the anxiety down. She had just solved a problem, gotten rid of the janitor who made her uncomfortable, proven that she was in control. Everything was fine. At 8:45 the next morning, she walked into the boardroom with her head held high. The entire executive team was already seated. The CEO, the CFO, the department heads, everyone. And at the head of the table, in the chairman's seat, was an empty chair. Victoria took her usual seat, straightened her jacket, put on her most professional smile. Does anyone know what this is about? She asked. Nobody answered. The room was silent. And then the door opened. Walter James walked in. But he didn't look like the janitor anymore. He was wearing a 3-piece suit, navy blue, perfectly tailored. His silver beard was trimmed. His posture was commanding. He walked past Victoria without looking at her. He walked to the head of the table, and he sat down in the chairman's seat. Victoria's smile froze. What is he doing here? The CEO, a man named Richard, cleared his throat. Victoria, this is Walter James. He's a majority shareholder of Pinnacle Solutions. He's owned this company for the past 3 years. Victoria's face went white, then red, then white again. That's impossible. He's the janitor. He mops floors. I do, Walter said calmly. Oh, I did. I wanted to see how this company really operates, how people treat each other when they think no one important is watching. He opened a folder in front of him, and I saw everything. For the next 30 minutes, Walter laid it all out. The footage of Victoria pouring coffee on the carpet. The statements from employees she had belittled and mistreated over the years. The fabricated evidence she had used to fire him. The pattern of behavior that went back years, targeting certain employees, creating hostile environments, abusing her power. Victoria tried to speak, tried to defend herself, tried to explain. But every time she opened her mouth, Walter simply held up another document, another piece of evidence, another nail in her coffin. Finally, he looked directly at her. "You called me your better," he said quietly. "You said I needed to know my place. You treated me like I was worthless because of the uniform I wore and the color of my skin." He stood up. "But here's what you never understood, Ms. Crane. A person's worth isn't measured by their title. It's measured by how they treat people who can't do anything for them." He closed the folder. "Your employment at Pinnacle Solutions is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out." Victoria's legs gave out. She didn't fall. She was sitting down, but something inside her collapsed. You could see it in her face, the way her shoulders crumbled, the way her hands started shaking. You can't do this." "I already have," Walter said. 2 security guards stepped into the room. Victoria looked around wildly. At Richard, at Tom, at the other executives. Nobody would meet her eyes. They escorted her through the lobby, the same lobby where she had fired Walter 2 days earlier. Employees stopped what they were doing. They watched. They whispered. And standing by the reception desk, arms folded, was Priya, the young manager who had finally found her courage. Victoria looked at her with pure hatred. Priya didn't look away. "Goodbye, Victoria." The front doors opened. Victoria walked out into the morning sunlight. And she never came back. That afternoon, Walter called an all-hands meeting. He stood at the front of the room, not behind a podium, just standing there, like he had always stood when he was mopping floors. "Some of you knew me as a janitor," he said. "Some of you are just finding out who I really am. But I want you to know something." He paused, looked around the room. "I started this company 40 years ago with nothing. No money, no connections, just hard work and a dream. And the thing I'm most proud of isn't the money or the success. It's the culture we built, a culture where everyone matters, where everyone is treated with dignity." His voice caught slightly. "I lost sight of that once. I let success change me, and it cost me time I can never get back." He took a breath. "I became a janitor because my wife, my Dorothy, told me to stay humble, to never forget where I came from. And for 3 years, I watched this company from the ground floor. I saw the good and the bad. I saw who you really are when you think no one's watching." He smiled. "Most of you passed that test. You said good morning. You cleaned up after yourselves. You treated me like a person, and I won't forget that." He looked toward the door, toward the empty space where Victoria used to stand. "But some people showed me who they really were too, and there's no place for that here. Not in the mall." He straightened up. "Starting today, we're making some changes. Better pay for our support staff. Mandatory respect training for all managers. An anonymous reporting system that actually gets reviewed. Because the way you treat the janitor is the way you treat anyone if you thought you could get away with it." The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Then the whole room. A month later, Walter was in his office. His real office now, looking out the window at the Atlanta skyline. There was a knock at the door. It was Priya. "Mr. James, do you have a minute?" Walter smiled. "For you? Always. Come in." Priya sat down across from him. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for not speaking up sooner. In that conference room, when she poured the coffee, I should have said something. I was just so scared of her." Walter nodded slowly. "Fear makes cowards of us all sometimes. What matters is that you found your courage when it counted." He leaned forward. "You sent that ethics report, didn't you?" Priya's eyes widened. "How did you know?" "I know everything that happens in this building," Walter said with a small smile. "Janitor's privilege." Priya laughed. For the first time in weeks, she actually laughed. That evening, Walter drove home. He pulled into the driveway of a modest house, not the mansion he could have afforded, but the home he and Dorothy had shared for 30 years. He walked inside, set down his keys, and he stopped in front of the photo on the hallway table. Dorothy, young, beautiful, smiling at the camera like she knew a secret no one else did. Walter touched the frame gently. "I stayed humble, baby," he whispered, "just like you told me." He stood there for a long moment, just breathing, just remembering, and somewhere in the silence, he could almost hear her voice. "I knew you would." And Victoria Crane? She tried to find another job, sent out resumes, called old contacts. But word travels fast in Atlanta's business community. Everyone had heard what happened. Everyone knew who she really was. And nobody wanted to take the risk. She eventually moved out of state, took a job nobody would have expected her to take. Entry level, no corner office, no power. And on her first day, as she was walking into her new building, she passed a janitor mopping the floor. An older black man, gray hair, kind eyes. "Morning," he said. Victoria froze, just for a second. Then she nodded, kept walking. But her hands were shaking, because for the rest of her life, she would never look at a janitor the same way again. She would never know who was really watching. And she would never forget the man who mopped her floors. The man she had called your better. The man who owned everything.